Welcome to Shift Your Perspective. I'm Jan.
And I'm Monika.
And today we're going to be talking with Matt about his feelings of unworthiness.
That sucks. I hate to feel unworthy. You know, it's the common thing that people think about. They think they're unworthy, they don't matter, they're not enough. So let's shift his perspective. So I'm very happy to be speaking with you today, Matt. And I just wanted to find out from you what might be an area that you're working on, places where you may have some challenges, things that you are working out or wanting to make better or wanting to shift.
I'm so happy to be speaking with y'all too. A few things. One main thing is probably self-worth and self-confidence with myself. It's something that I've been working on since forever. And I feel like I've made pretty good breakthroughs with it. And then it just started coming back up a lot more this past month. I believe with like a lot more stress and it's causing it to come out a lot more. And so those are some areas that I would love to tackle and just cut out of my life.
All right, good. So the deal is that we don't necessarily cut out a self-worth or a self-confidence issue. Like whatever's stopping you from it or whatever is in the way of you recognizing how worthy you are, it's a difficult thing to cut it out. So I want to just reframe that to say, what would be a more powerful way for you to acknowledge that there's a part inside of you that was created, and this is part of what we might peel back the layers for today, but there was a part inside of you that got created that secretly, so no one else knows, is whispering to you in your head saying, you aren't doing that right. That's not good enough. Why don't you figure this out, Matt? You should know this by now. How old are you again? When are you going to stop doing those things? Why can't you be here in your business? Why can't you be here in your life? And that voice, we listen to as though it's us. And if you've ever read the book, The Untethered Soul, it talks a lot about how if you pull yourself away from that voice and literally attempt to stand behind it, whatever that means to you, but like stand behind it and watch the voice just talk as though it's some stranger talking to you, you might have a better vantage point of why it's telling you what it's telling you. But to get rid of unworthiness or to get rid of a lack of confidence, I don't necessarily know how easy it is to get rid of it, but rather whenever it arises or whatever triggers it to come forward, that we have tools, resources, and awareness that it's actually not the only truth and maybe not even the truth.
To add to what Monika just said, what we believe is you are worthy. You just are. You were born. You already won the universal lottery by actually being born and having awareness and being able to be having this conversation and experience life. There's nothing that we can do or say to take that away from the fact that you are worthy. So what happens along our life is that we pick up stuff that tells us we're not worthy, we're not worthy, we're not enough, we didn't do it right. So those are the things we're going to cut out. We're going to cut out those things that are stopping your light from shining. That's really, we say that we eradicate self-inflicted suffering. And we do that partly by helping people remove the stuff that is dimming themselves. For me, that would be a wonderful goal for the conversation, is to identify, okay, what's the situation where something may come up where you then hear the voice of not feeling worthy, and how do we then remove that so that you don't have to do anything differently than just be yourself.
Perfect. Yes.
That would be so nice. I would like it.
Right? Like how great is it to, all you have to do is be yourself.
Yes, just be me.
Just be you. Perfect. We're done. Actually, you said something that I thought was interesting. You said that it's been coming up and you started doing work on it and that was working for you and then it started coming up again. So what have you been, just for our edification, what have you been doing that started to work to help your worthiness?
First thing that I started doing was just speaking, like talking to myself and just speaking words of affirmation to myself. I remember the first time I actually looked at myself in the mirror, I was trying to tell myself that I love myself and I couldn't do it. I just broke. So it was just really like writing words of affirmation and then speaking those words over myself over and over again. That was like a huge thing for me, and it still is, to be able to write words of affirmation or speak words of affirmation. And then I went back and tracked why I was feeling a certain way, and it connected to from the way my parents were speaking to me when I was younger, and then how I felt. I read the Four Agreements, which changed my life.
Yeah.
But assuming, I used to like assume all the time that whenever people would say something or look a certain way or do something, that I was creating those lies in my head and putting them to be like real facts in my life. And I became aware of it. And so I stopped doing that as much. So that's like the main things that I was doing a lot. Was like, I realized that I was assuming that people were thinking a certain way when it's actually not them saying it, but I was assuming that they were saying it in their head towards me. So that was some things that I was using a lot that helped me. Um, Now thinking about it again, these are the kind of things that I'm doing again that's causing it to come up. Um, and it's when it's coming up now, I do assume, but it's harder for me to justify that it's not true, that I'm not making it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let me say back to you what I just heard you say. So let's say you're in some kind of a social situation, or you're in a business meeting or something, and you are looking around and you're making the assumption that certain people are saying certain things about you. Or maybe there was a meeting and you shared in the meeting, and then everyone gets off the call, and then in your mind you start reenacting how that meeting went, and you think about like what people were saying, like they're observing and judging your participation, and what you're imagining is that it's not positive.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, we can definitely do something with that, because here's the good news. It's all happening in your mind. It's all happening in your mind.
You may want to say that out loud. Why don't you repeat what Jan said?
It's all happening in my mind.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually hearing them say something. It's not like they actually said, boy, Matt, your contribution really had no value, and I really don't know why you're even on these calls at all. They didn't say that.
Or did they?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Instead, they said nothing, but your brain went there. So like I said, it's good news, because if it's happening in your mind, then you can actually replace that with different thoughts.
And hang on one second.
Yes.
Have you ever heard those words? Has anyone ever said you're not valuable and you're not worthy, and why are you here?
No.
Never in your life?
Once.
Okay, tell me the scenario.
When I was younger in high school, so with my parents, I didn't have like a really good relationship with my parents, because they would always party and do stuff, and it wasn't feel like attention was on the kids. So I would go hang out with my friends, and I think it was like Father's Day, and I decided to go hang out with my friends and their family, because they felt more like a family to me than when I was around my family. And then I came home later that day, and my mom, she was drinking, so she was drunk already, and she told me that she didn't want me to be her child anymore. And it was just like, what? It was one of those things, the words that she was saying to me, where it made me feel like I wasn't worthy at all. And those things play in my head over and over and over again, to wherever, if it is me assuming something about somebody, just because my mom has said it to me, someone that's really close to me already, I'll go ahead and assume like, well, if my mom can say that to them, they're probably thinking the same thing, just afraid to say it to me.
Okay, so we'll start with, just like Jan did a moment ago, I'm going to reflect to you that what I heard you say is your mom said really, really, really hurtful things. And she said things that a mom, probably a son, would never want to hear. Right?
Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
Unviable. Like I didn't have a purpose. Honestly, it got to the point where I didn't even know like why I wanted to be alive at that moment.
Right. And I can understand that. As a little boy, how old were you?
I was like 13.
Okay, so great. So as a young man, I still consider it a little boy. My son is 15. So back when he was 13, my little man, all I want is to protect him, to remind him how amazing he is, to encourage him, to give him the confidence to go face the world. He's coming of age. His hormones are kicking through his body. Like, all I want for him to know is how special and important he is. And yet your experience is rejection, not feeling taken care of, not feeling safe. Is that kind of how it was?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can understand how that would have you feel like Where am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to belong? The person or the people, my mom and dad, who I most want to be loved by and most want to do good things so they love me. We have that misunderstanding, like the better I do, the smarter I am, the better grades I get, the more successful I am, the more they're going to love me. I had that similar upbringing. And I think a lot of children feel that way. And some children have the fortune of parents who are like, good job, you did it. And they just reassure and reassure. That was a lot of what Jan's experience was. That was a lot of how my mom was. And then my dad, like you've experienced, wasn't that way. And so the first thing to know is you're not broken. You are valuable. You are worthy. And the only thing your mom knew to do was to share with you those words because underneath she was harboring whatever her insecurities, her unworthiness, her missing value was. And very often that concept is called we project, like a projector onto a movie screen. We project what we feel inside onto the people we love because we feel the safest to tell them. And it's not the truth. And they don't mean to have the venom and they don't mean to have the anger. And on top of it, with the drinking, the emotions are even more heightened. And so this 13-year-old kid was like, now what am I doing with my life? You know, I went away so to protect myself from it. And here I come home and here it all is. Bigger in my face. So the first thing is to acknowledge the strength and the courage that that created for you. That not taking your life, not ending it, not doing terrible things to yourself because you just had no other direction to go at such a young age, what courage that took. Do you see that that took a lot of courage and a lot of strength?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So where inside of you do you tap into that courage and that strength that you know you have inside of you as well?
Honestly, it's like after I talk to myself, I more like, I guess, instance here today. Honestly, since Matt's my best friend, we're like really, really close. And so whenever we butt heads, it hurts me a lot because we're so close. I was like, whenever it's something like that, I will get in my head too, and it goes back to me being like figuring out my worth and stuff like that. And then I'll just sit down and talk to myself, and I'm like, okay. And I talk to myself, and actually, now it gets to the point where after I talk to myself, it makes me want to push even harder. To me, is like to prove to other people, and prove not to other people, but prove to myself that those thoughts are wrong for me. But to prove to other people, even if they're not thinking it, if they were thinking it, that they're wrong, if that makes sense. It lights a fire underneath me.
And is that fire something that you feel is a positive result?
At times, yes. And at times it's kind of like revenge to prove to people like, this is what you're wrong and you're missing out on and stuff like that.
So what I'm hearing, Matt, is a series of compensations. What you're working to compensate so that you feel safe, so that you feel loved, so that you feel understood, so that you feel important, so that you keep going, so that you have a drive. And what would it be like for you if it wasn't based on a compensatory relationship? You didn't have to compensate for someone or something in order to.
That would be amazing.
What would be amazing about it for you?
Just from even you stating that, I do realize now that a lot of times things in life, it directs from, or like friendships or whatever it is relationship wise, it guides my life. So whenever someone feels like I feel like I'm hurt by somebody, my volume goes down, everything about me in life just goes down. And now that you said it, now me thinking about it, my life is controlled by relationships and how I'm attached to people's opinions or like actions towards me. And what I feel like for me, it's acceptance and like being heard and understood by them. And that just controls a lot of things that I do. And I don't want that to control me anymore.
Okay, great. So the second part of this then, if you don't want the things that you have experienced are controlling you, is to recognize the pattern that triggers or activates that response. That's what we need to get to. So when we look at this, can you see that when you were young and that incident happened, if we take that incident as the incident, and your mother shared what she shared, can you see that there was a part of you that made a decision in that moment? There was a part of you that said, I did what I thought I needed to do to protect myself and stay away from the negativity. And yet, even though I did what I thought I needed to do to protect myself, negativity still finds me, even when I'm hiding from it or trying to work around it.
Yes, for sure.
So if negativity still finds me, then what would you have decided in order to avoid it or to handle it in your life moving forward from 13 on?
From 13 on, from now, I would say open communication. Talking to my mom about how it made me feel.
Okay, good. But before you have this awareness, these insights, because that's a very good reframe and a great transition, the negative experiences when I don't feel like I'm safe in an environment and then I do something to make myself safe and still I end up in that environment with the same feeling that I was trying to avoid. This is what's true.
I like close all. I would get super depressed all the time. I would stay to myself, cry a lot. I would not get close or do, if I was with anybody, since I do act and stuff and model, I would fake it. I hid behind a mask for so long of acting like I was happy when I was not the entire time. So I went through heavy depression. So that was one thing. Whenever I didn't feel a certain way or feel like I was heard, I would just retreat to myself and keep it all inside because I didn't feel like I didn't have anyone to talk to. Because it comes negative back towards me. So it was just all inward, and keeping it stored in and keep talking those negative things to myself.
Great. And so then would it be accurate to say, when things are not going the way that I think they should be going, I need to, at all costs, hide who I really am and let no one know what I feel and isolate myself so as to avoid getting hurt?
That's what I did.
So when you were younger and you were, living at home, you're 13 years old, and you do what you just kind of shared, where you kind of shut down and go in depression mode,
Mm-hmm.
how would your parents react to that?
Honestly, they did not.
They
It's
didn't,
like they didn't even notice, to be honest.
they didn't notice?
Yeah.
Did other people notice?
My brother, I have a twin, so my twin brother did.
And how would he react when he saw that you were going into shutdown?
He would come in the room and try to talk to me, and for me, I would act like I hurt him and act like what he was saying was like helping me out, just so that I could not talk to anybody and just keep it to myself. I would, act like I heard it, but just like still push people away.
Well, the reason why I asked that question is, here's what happens. In life, we find ways to cope. We find ways to get through things, and they work for us. The example I always give is, you can imagine a child on a sandbox who's playing, and he's like 5 or 6 years old, and he's playing in the sandbox and super happy, and some kids come and they take his toys, and so he says, hey, can I have my toys back? And they laugh and they don't give the toys back, and so he yells and says, give me back my toys now, and they drop the toys and leave. That child learns, oh, I got my toys back when I raised my voice. In any time of pressure or stress, they're going to raise their voice, and they're going to be 10, 13, 20, 40, and they're going to be in a situation, and they're going to be talking to us or a therapist or a coach or somebody and go, why is it that I always lose my temper when I feel like something's not going the way it's supposed to be going? It's because they learned it at that point. And what I'm hearing is, when I go into shutdown, I receive love.
That's true. Like it feels like it's the only time that I feel that people, like my brother, will like, hey, let me love on you now. And now you saying that, I guess it'll be a way of me kind of, I would say I didn't want people to feel pity for me, but in a way I wanted them to, so they can notice me and notice what was going on, because I didn't feel like I was being noticed at all. Like I've always felt like I lived in the shadows forever and never been seen.
And if you bring that to today and you get into an argument with someone you really care about and you kind of butt heads like you described, and you really want them to see how much it impacted you. I'm not working out now. My business sales and volume is going down. I'm not doing the work. It's like, it's a great way to let people know that you've been hurt and that you want love.
Rescue me! Help!
So is that the most, now that we know, we think that we isolated, that this is something that you created when you were younger, they call it a winning formula. It's a coping strategy. It's something that you learned to do in order to survive. But now you're older and you have more wisdom. And now you know you don't necessarily have to do that anymore. So what we want to do now is, now we've identified a limiting belief that you created in your youth that is still coming forward, and it creates pattern over and over again. And what we want to do is go back in time to that moment and create a new belief.
Create a new outcome that shifts the way that your brain hooks up to what responses you can have when things don't go exactly the way Matt wants them to go. So imagine that you are at your friend's house still, and you're really clear, probably knowing your parents and knowing the pattern, what you're going to go home to. Would that be a pretty fair assessment? Best case scenario, they're not drinking, but typical scenario, they've been drinking.
Correct.
Okay? So when your parents drink, what could you have expected?
For my mom to always have something to say.
It's
Always
typically negative.
Never positive.
Yeah.
And then my dad is like very quiet, so he would just keep to himself. Honestly, even when he's drinking, he just keeps to himself very personally. And so every time my mom's drinking, I would always expect my mom to have something to say. Never anything positive. I always wait. Like I always, before going into the door, I always remember taking a deep breath and like, all right, here we go. And that was always something that happened.
Okay, great. So knowing that your mom was probably going to have something, if she's drinking, that might be negative to say, what would the Matt today tell the 13-year-old Matt outside the front door when he takes that deep breath? What would the Matt today tell him to prepare him for what he's about to walk into?
Tell him to take a deep breath and to know whatever she says is not towards you. It's something that she's going through personally herself. And for the best to be is just to let her go through it, but be as positive as you can be and don't let it affect you.
Beautiful. So just like in the 4 agreements that you loved and it changed your life so much, you realize that some people express the way they love in very weird and obscene and unreasonable ways. And it's because they have pain of their own. Their pain gets triggered, and then out their mouth comes things that they wish they had never said. And when they're drunk, they don't even remember saying.
Mm-hmm.
So great. So you tell the 13-year-old, okay, you're about to go in there. It's a little bit of a war zone. Mom's probably drinking. She's probably going to say some things. And here's the deal. I'm going to give you a magical pair of hearing aids. You're going to put them in your ear. You will not be able to hear anything that she's saying. And you're going to pretend like you can hear everything that she's saying. But instead of hearing the hurtful words, you're going to hear every sentence. I love you. I love you. I love you. And maybe every once in a while, and I'm hurting. And I love you. And I love you. And I'm hurting. And I love you. And that's what you're going to hear. And then after she's done and you excuse yourself, you can take the hearing aids out and hear whatever you need to hear. And maybe you even get to tell yourself what you need to hear from big boy Matt.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
After hearing you say it, I can like envision my mom saying it. And just to know, like from now, like the future me, seeing my mom, I see that she hurts all the time and she won't admit it to herself. And for her to admit it would just be something huge. And for her to actually say in those moments that she does love me, and not just only whenever it's like me leaving to go back to Texas or wherever I have to travel. And that's like the only time I hear it. to actually hear her say authentically, like, hey, I love you, just out of nowhere. And for her to admit that she's hurting, like I was just seeing her say it, and then just that's one of my whys, is to actually have my mom to admit that she's hurting and to help her get through it. So,
Well, here's the thing. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And thank you for sharing. It's very important that as you have these feelings that come forward, that you really let them up and out. Because if you don't, then just like her holding them in, they stay in there. And they fester and they become bigger than we ever want them to be. So what's available for you is when you start feeling the tears and feeling the emotion, just let it come. Just let it move through you and let it be. It can be tears of joy. It can be tears of release. It can be tears of pain. It can be tears of all of it coming forward and letting go of the way you've ever seen it before. Because knowing the feeling you would have inside that your mother is saying, I'm hurting, she may never, Matt, say those words that way. She may be conditioned from her upbringing that you need to suck it up, you need to be strong, babies cry. She may have been really heavy-handed, taught masculine processing of emotions. But that doesn't mean that you have to. In fact, sometimes when you're standing before her, if you can put the magical hearing aids on and hear her say, I'm hurting, I love you, I'm hurting, I love you, I love you, and you just start crying in front of her, it could actually give her access to at least the sensory information inside of her, like, oh my gosh, that's something I'm feeling. Why is he crying? Like she might even have a response to you, but you pay no mind to the response that she would have, just knowing you're reflecting the experience that she's having so that you don't have to hold it in and internalize it and mask yourself from the pain that's like your mom. Yeah. Because what we don't want to do is take on what you just learned and watched your whole life growing up from your mom. We want to learn, I can be a role model of expressing the feelings that I have and being safe and courageous to express them in front of people. Knowing that it means nothing about being weak, it means everything about being courageous and strong and willing to stand in my truth. So knowing that this is probably a sample of maybe something that your mom could be feeling inside, what is true about that moment with your mom? Instead of you feeling like, I can never show my emotions and I have to wear a mask, what's true about what you could actually feel or what you could actually express?
Feel that she is hurting, and that because she does care for me, is the way that she's projecting onto me. And it's kind of my place as her son and as a person in her life to be able to be strong enough for her and to show that it's okay to be emotional, and it's okay to let emotions out and to go through what you're growing through instead of going through but growing through it, and that it's everything's going to be okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And what's true about you specifically?
That I'm strong and that I'm valuable and that I have a lot to offer, not only to my family, but to everyone. And that no matter what comes my way, I can get through anything.
And that because you're so strong, Matt, people are able to speak their truth to you. And sometimes their truth is not pretty. If you couldn't handle it, your mother would never have been able to say that. But because you were so strong at 13, because you chose parents that were going to show you how to be courageous and strong, she felt able to say what she said the way she said it. And it didn't cause you to kill yourself, and it didn't cause you to break, and it didn't cause you to stop driving and proving and showing up and doing what you need to do to help other people.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we love to do that's really helpful is called compassionate self-forgiveness. You know how when you're in an argument with someone and they say, I forgive you, and it just releases a weight, or sometimes you did something, you feel really bad about it, and they say, I forgive you, and it releases a weight. Well, we can do that with ourselves. We can forgive ourselves. It's like the greatest tool that nobody knows about. And I always, like at the end of almost every Shift Your Perspective, I like bring up, by the way, you can forgive yourself. You can release the weight because we're carrying around our own backpack. So here's what it sounds like. And the wording is very specific. It's, I forgive myself for judging myself as not worthy.
I forgive myself for judging myself for not being worthy.
No, you see, then that's why it's so great when you just said it the way you said it, is because the way you said it, actually saying, I forgive myself for being not worthy. That's not true. You're totally worthy. So I forgive myself for judging myself as not worthy.
I forgive myself for judging myself as not worthy.
And I forgive myself for judging myself as not being lovable.
I forgive myself for judging myself as not being lovable.
And I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that to receive love. So I'll say it again slowly.
I forgive myself from buying into that in order to receive love, I have to go into depression.
Great. How does it feel when you say that?
It feels good. It feels, every time I say it, it feels like a weight is like going off and off. It gets lighter and lighter and lighter every single time.
We do compassionate self-forgiveness all the time. Last night I couldn't sleep. I had all these thoughts going through my head. I woke up in the morning and I told Monika I did compassionate self-forgiveness from like 4 to 5 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I had all these thoughts. So I just in bed with my eyes closed, I forgive myself for judging myself as not worthy. I forgive myself for not trusting that it all was going to work out. And I forgive myself, and I just went through those, and it's a release. And I love the analogy that I once heard that it's almost like chipping. Imagine a big thing of marble, and you're just chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, and they're little chips. And with one of the little chips, a big slab falls off. And before you know it, the judgment that we have against ourselves and the misunderstanding that we bought into just disappears. So let's bring all of this forward to today and to the present.
Can I just say one other thing?
Yes, you can.
So it's also, you do the compassionate self-forgiveness for yourself, but you can also go back in time and do, I forgive my mom. I forgive myself for judging my mom. So I forgive myself still, but then the second part is I forgive myself for judging my mom as incapable of loving me the way I needed to be loved. And I forgive myself for judging my mom as not treating a son the way I believe a son should have been treated. It's like when you start getting clear about she was just doing the best she could, and I placed a judgment against she should have done it differently. She should have known better. She should have had better parenting so that she could parent better. She shouldn't have had so much pain that it drove her to alcohol that then I had to deal with it. It's like all those judgments existed inside of this little boy who didn't know how else to handle it. But now as an adult, you really have the opportunity and the tools to be able to forgive all the misunderstandings at whatever age stage it happened, whenever it was the worst. And then it frees her to step into the truth of who she really is. Because free of her pain and free of her upbringing and free of her misunderstandings and assumptions, the woman she would be is probably everything you'd want a mom to be.
Thank you for that. Thank you. This is like, it feels really good. Like even hearing it, because I'm like, I process a lot of things mentally in my head all the time. It's like even when you guys are thinking, I'm going through things in my head. And it's like, I'm a visual person. So I visualize myself saying these things to people, or visualize saying it to myself in the mirror, or looking at myself, stepping back and looking at myself and saying it. And so it even though I'm not vocally saying it at the moment, I'm saying it internally, and it's like, and it's just, and that's honestly things that I do whenever I'm around people, and I don't want to say things out loud because they'll like look at me strange. So I just honestly just internally like say things like that in my head. I'm like, okay. But those help a lot. Even saying it out loud and hearing you saying it and me saying it internally is a totally different level than I've ever experienced before. And so I really do, really do appreciate those. And I'm keeping those like in the forefront of my mind all the time.
Awesome.
Towards every situation that I feel like not only my mom, but other things that I've gone through personally.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great.
So let's bring it to, you just got off a call, you just had a business call, and you get off the phone and you start having thoughts in your head of like, oh, why did I say that? And they're probably saying negative things about me. So what can you do with the kind of awareness that you have right now? What are your thoughts now?
My thoughts now is just me trying to feel like wanting them to hear, say, good job, or good, or that you are doing great, and acknowledging me. And I should not have to hear someone say acknowledgement for myself, because what I have for myself should be enough, personally. And being aware that I'm thinking those thoughts because of the fact that I want to receive it.
How could you actually then receive it?
Say it out loud to myself.
Yeah, I mean, you started this call with basically the solution, but now the solution has a more directed intention. The solution is looking at yourself in the mirror, the affirmations that you tell yourself. But now it's solving what was the misunderstanding before, that I wasn't worthy. So now it's not a fix of a conversation about being unworthy. Now it's a truth that you're actually believing in. And
Exactly.
that simple shift of I need to fix what I'm broken at versus this is the truth that I just have been ignoring or hiding from. Now the way you'll receive your affirmations and when you're speaking to yourself can be very different.
That's so crazy. This is so crazy. This is so good.
And the last thing I want to share is, if you find yourself making a right turn and heading into depression land and stuck land, now you have the awareness. You can remind yourself of, oh, I'm creating this because in the past, this is how I used to receive love. But now I know that this isn't the best way for me to get love.
So I can
do something differently. So what can I
Hi,
do
Matt. How you doing? Buddy, I love you and I need your help. I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling silly and I'm feeling like I'm totally judging myself. Am I a loser? Nope, buddy, you're not a loser. Am I stupid? Nope, you're not stupid. Should I go and stick my head in a hole and hide? Nope, you should come over to my house right now and we should hang out.
Yes. So, hold it in, touch myself, reach out to the ones that are here for me at all times, and actually know that they are there, not assuming that they're not.
Well, and trusting that if the people that are your friends, your close inner circle, the ones you hold dear, that guard the guardians of your heart, if we have one person that guards our heart, we're blessed. If we have two people that guard our heart, we're even more blessed. If we have 5 people that guard our heart, like I have my tight inner guardians of my heart circle. Right outside of my guardians of my heart circle are the guardians of my thoughts. But the guardians of my heart, they hold a special place where I invite them into my life, because when push comes to shove and I need, when I pick up, when my bat signal goes up, they answer the call. But there's only 5 of them. And I'm very clear of why they're there and who they are and what I can ask of them, so as to not place assumptions and expectations and pressure onto the friendship. So every time you reach out to someone that you think is a guardian of your heart, and they don't answer the call and they don't get back to you and they're not the one, then you may say, you know what, you're a guardian of my thoughts, but not a guardian of my heart. And you may reissue the decree into the planet, hey, I'm inviting a new guardian of the heart into my space. And it's a really precious experience. It's very sacred. But then you're not like, I'm a loser and they don't love me. It's, they're not a guardian of my heart.
Thank you. I needed to hear that, because that's the thoughts that I usually would tell myself, is that, oh, it's okay, they just don't love me. I don't feel loved. They're not wanting to be around me. That's accurate. I was actually thinking that like 2 weeks ago. So that was like dead on.
And those thoughts that you have, you created those when you were younger in order to figure out how to get love. That was your young child manipulation to get love. Let me have these negative thoughts. Let me be this way. Let me have a tantrum. Let me go into shutdown, all of these different things. And that's how I could get love. And now, as a grown-up, as a mature, spiritually evolved young man, you can get love differently. You can get love just simply by loving yourself. You can get love by reaching out to the people who love you. There's a million different ways. Now you have my number. You have another guardian of your heart.
Yes.
All right. So is there anything else that you want to conclude with?
No, I think that was really beautiful. And I just totally appreciate and value your courageousness and your strength. And cry those tears so they get out of your body. And love the people around you even when they don't know how to love you back.
Thank you both so much. It feels like a huge weight's lifted off of me that I didn't even know was there. So thank you both so much. I really do.
Great job. And you are so worthy. Look at where you came from and where you are now. You are beyond worthy. You are amazing.
And you're making a kick-ass, badass impact on the planet.
Yes. Let's go.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That was amazing. I
Yes.
say that every time after every shift your perspective. I feel like I want to say something different, but my feeling always is,
Yeah, it breaks my heart open. It just has me feel so connected to people that in just a short amount of time, we can dive deep how vulnerable, how courageous, how amazing people can be to really express and share who they really are.
yeah. And he's having these feelings of not worthy. And then you hear everything that he's been through and where he is now. And it's like, oh my goodness, you are anything but unworthy. You are amazing.
That's right.
And we just get to help people embrace themselves and really see how amazing they are.
Yes,
So I think he's doing that now.
I do too.
Well, and I think he has the tools to be able to tell himself that and believe it.
Yes. So if you have something in your life that you're dealing with and you would love to shift your perspective, go ahead and go to our website, janandmonika.com/shift my perspective, where you can fill out a form and someone from our team will contact you so you can have a free session with us to shift your perspective.
And you can see how wonderful and worthy and lovable you are as well.